Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. It is literally 5:30 in the morning, but I literally sped read this book and I have to review it while it's fresh in my mind. So this book is called Dark Room Etiquette by Robin Roe, and I read a sample of it last night to make sure that I liked it before I bought it, and I bought it officially last night and I started it tonight, but I really just picked up where I left off after the first few chapters in the sample. So it's technically taken me 2 days to read it, but most of my reading time came tonight. Like, I have read for hours and hours and hours and hours. So I'm going to review this book. So it's kind of like a psychological thriller, but there's a lot of like character development moments. And one thing that I liked, I was really surprised by how long this book is. Like, it's a really long book and it takes a while to build up to the moment that the character is kidnapped. It's basically about a boy who's 16 who's kidnapped and the things that he goes through to survive. And it starts off with a moment where you realize he's kidnapped, but then it flashes back to his life prior to being kidnapped. And it shows his life very clearly. Like, it takes a while before we get back to the kidnapping, and then the aftermath is a huge section of the book. Probably, I think it was like 60, the Kindle, it has the percentages as you're reading through. It was like 60% all the way through, and it was a very, very long book, but I find that it's actually really good because not only do you get to see the ending of what happens with the kidnapping, but the aftermath, and it actually takes a long time for that. Like, it shows the very realistic process of overcoming trauma and the brain and how you deal with surviving in different situations. And it's really, really good, and it deals with a lot, and it's so realistic about survival and trauma and PTSD and all of these really, really deep issues. And it's so heart-wrenching, and I just could not stop reading. Like I said, I read a sample of it last night, which was just a few chapters, and last night I was looking for a book to read that was similar to Split, which I just finished reading. So I was reading different samples, and I tried this one and I tried a few others, and but my brain, I was like, I really want to know what happens next. And I was reluctant to buy this book because the only problem that I really have with this book, honestly, is that the ebook is $13.99, which is expensive for an ebook. The hardback, an actual hardback book of it, is $11.99 on Amazon. So $13.99 is so expensive for the ebook, but I just had to. Like, this is the most expensive ebook that I've ever bought in my life, but oh my gosh, it was so worth it. So I was probably, I want to say 19%. So I was only, maybe even less than that. So I was only a few chapters into it, and so most of it was I just binged read it tonight because I cannot tell you enough. Like, my heart goes out to the main character, Sayers, and it really is a psychological thriller. There was a good psychological thriller. There is the thrilling aspect of it, but it's also about the mind games that the bad guys play on the main characters, and thus by default that the bad guys play on you as you're reading the story. And it is storming, and the rain and the wind are getting really heavy. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I hope the door doesn't fly open. But anyways, and so a good thriller. Yep, the door just flew open. Stay. Okay, sorry about that. The wind was so strong the door flew open. My dog was sitting there and I didn't want him to run out, so I had to move a couple of the dog barrels in there. That was scary. Here I am talking about psychological thrillers. It's like, what a time. I'm not doing this on purpose, I swear. So anyways, a good psychological thriller isn't just about the thrilling or the action. A lot of it is what draws me into them. It's like one of my favorite genres, because what draws me into it is that the villains play mind games on the main characters, and by default it plays mind games on the readers, and the writer writes it in a way that it plays mind games on the readers as well. And there was a part in the middle of this book where I was confused and I was like, what is going on? And the mind games was very much played on the main character and me. And the fact that it didn't just end, that it actually shows the aftermath and the dealing with the trauma and unraveling this mind game where his mind has been so messed up, which is so much fun to read. It was amazing. The character development is so good. Like, I cannot tell you like how detailed this actually is. And it's written in first person present tense. So a lot of the like flashbacks and PTSD and different scenes like that are just really, really good, where you feel like you're there with him. And then a lot of the side characters, he has a lot of friends and a lot of situations like that that really, that you really get to know the characters, and they feel really realistic. Like, they're not all good. I won't say anything about that, but because he has a lot of crappy friends, but the character development and what the authors do with them, what the author does with them, is just really intriguing to read. And I find myself like rooting for him and not just overcoming the trauma that he's been through, but it's like he doesn't have a good life at home. So it's like it gets even sadder when he comes back and he's like this broken person and he doesn't have a good life or good people around him to help him through, and it almost makes him worse. And it breaks my heart, and it made me want to root for him. So I had to keep reading. I also found a story arc between him and this other character was so touching. I also found a story arc with him and this other character so touching that a lot of the deeper meanings in this book was still really good and there, because there was like a lot of bullies that learn their lessons and learn to become nice people, and like gaining sympathy for people who are going through rough times. At first there was an element of Christianity thrown in where he's in a classroom, and they had the typical trope when Christianity is included in a secular medium form, whether it's a book or a TV show or movie, is that the Christians, we start spouting off Christian stuff and we'd seem crazy, and it came off that way. But later on in the book, he actually gets like religion, quote unquote, and it actually kind of brings it into a more it brings it into a light that I can like sympathize with and understand and not be as angry about. And so it had all these side characters in it that made me, it was very realistic development for them, even if sometimes I didn't like them. And it also had really important themes in it, like there was the aspect of a bully learning that what he's doing is wrong and kind of sympathizing more with people who are, keep having interruptions, but I will get this review done before I go to bed. Oh my gosh. So anyways, like a person sympathizing and learning that people go through different things in life, and like sympathizing with somebody who's going through a lot, and the idea of friendship and like friends kind of like making up with each other and coming together, and then the whole aspect of survival and what the brain does to survive and how the brain processes trauma to protect us, and then trauma, different ways people deal with it, and then survival, and then there's a twist with the survival, and there's another character, and it's just really sweet. And then, like I said, it threw out the religion, where a lot of times in media, books and movies and TV shows, the Christian, if we're included in secular stuff, we are considered like crazy, and so we'll like the Christian character always starts talking about Christian things, but it's portrayed in kind of a crazy way. And at first, one of the scenes, I thought that this book was going to do that, but then later on he ends up finding religion, and it kind of comes back to a way that I can deal with it, so it wasn't as like I hated it so bad it almost was going to dock it down a star rating for me, but then it brought it back into a realistic kind of, it got him through what he was going through kind of way, and so I really appreciated that. And the one thing that I loved was not only the psychological thriller, like I said, with the psychological aspect and the villain messing with the hero's mind, and that messes with the reader's mind, and that's what draws me in and gets me addicted to these kind of books. But usually it just ends and we're just kind of left open to, okay, it ended happily ever after. But in this one, it was like 60% of the book was only passed, so we had 40% more to go. And this was a long 40% because it was a very, very long book. There was 90 chapters in it, and so I would say probably I don't remember, I wasn't really paying attention to chapter numbers, but a good portion of the book was the aftermath and the trauma. And so it didn't just drop us off and say things ended happily. It actually like really carefully went through the ending and aftermath and like everything that happened and how the character had to overcome how his mind was broken and the fight for that and how he comes out of it. And when you come out of trauma and survival, like, you're not the same. And this book was so addicting. And after finishing Split, I was like, I wasn't sure if I was going to find another book that was just as good as it, but I'm telling you, Dark Room Etiquette, so good. 5 stars, 11 stars, thousands of stars if I could. Like, I don't see anything wrong with this. Like, the only issue I have with this book is that the ebook is $13.99. So the hardback is $11.99, and then the paperback is like, I think $15.99. So I don't know why, because it doesn't make any sense at all. But the pricing, it's an expensive book, but I would say it's long enough that it's kind of like, it makes sense, but like $13 is a huge amount of money for a single ebook. Honestly, like, this is a lot of money. Like, I was able to get the entire Once Upon a Prince series, which is a series of fairy tale romances, all for $10.99, like, and that's 12 ebooks in that. So it's just crazy to me that this was $13. To me, it was personally worth it. It's up to the individual person. Like, if you like psychological thrillers, then you're gonna love Dark Room Etiquette, then it may be worth it. But I would suggest reading the sample first, because the sample edit can usually, can tell you whether you're gonna like it or not. And for me, I did and wanted to keep reading. So again, for me, 5 stars, and I absolutely loved it. And like I said, the only issue I had, there was no editing mistakes, no problems that I saw, nothing that I hated other than the way that Christianity was portrayed in the beginning. But I think that was for a specific purpose, because the character was the main character starts off as a very narcissistic, arrogant kind of jerk, and the whole story is about his development and the way that he changes in multiple ways. And so I can kind of forgive that. I would love to recommend this book to people because it's such a good book. Same with Split, but this one does deal with a lot of trauma, a lot of psychological stuff, a little bit of abuse. I wouldn't say the abuse or violence is too heavy-handed. I think Split actually did more with it, but there is a lot of dealing with trauma, and so it could get actually more triggering, I would say. So just be wary of that. If that sort of thing is triggering to you, it wasn't triggering for me at all, but it does deal with some very, very heavy trauma associated topics, so keep that in mind. But I do recommend it if this is within your genre and you really like this sort of thing. I can and do recommend it, because oh my gosh, I love this book. But overall, I loved this book. So if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in the meantime, if you liked my review of Dark Room Etiquette by Robin Roe, then check out my review of The Split. Check it out. It's another book like this about trauma, and I'm really into this genre right now, so check it out. You don't want to miss it.